Picture this. You walk into your kitchen. Your cat looks directly at you. Then comes one sound, meow. You answer. The cat meows again, and somehow, without sharing a language, you understand that a negotiation has begun. Food, a door, attention. Possibly something invisible on the wall. It feels ordinary, but there is something strange hiding inside that sound. Adult cats do not spend their lives wandering around, constantly meowing at other adult cats. Yet around humans, many become remarkably vocal. Which raises a bizarre question. Why did an animal famous for independence develop a sound that works so well on us? The obvious answer is simple. Cats meow because cats meow. Except that explanation falls apart once you look at feline communication. Cats have an entire toolkit: scent marks, body posture, tail position, ear movement, touch, hissing, growling, yowling, purring, chirping, and meowing. But the familiar household meow has become especially important in communication between cats and humans. That matters because cats did not evolve beside us in exactly the same way dogs did. Their ancestors were solitary hunters. They stalked small prey. They relied heavily on stealth. Announcing your location every 30 seconds is not an obvious survival advantage when your dinner has ears. So the meow has a complicated history. Kittens vocalize to their mothers. A young kitten that is cold, trapped, hungry, or separated has a serious problem. Its mother is transportation, protection, heat, and food. Calling can bring help, but as cats mature, their social world changes. Communication between adults often leans heavily on scent and body language rather than the conversational meowing humans recognize. Then humans entered the equation, not as fellow cats, as something stranger. Large primates with houses, hands, stored food, doors, and an almost embarrassing sensitivity to small creatures making needy noises. And cats discovered that we listen. One of the clearest early experiments came from Nicholas Nicastro and Michael Oren. In 2003, they recorded meows from 12 cats across 5 different situations. Human listeners then tried to identify the context. Their guesses were better than chance, but only modestly. And people performed better when hearing sequences of meows instead of single calls. That changes the picture. A meow is not necessarily a tiny spoken word. Your cat may not have one precise sound meaning chicken, another meaning window, and another meaning stop touching my stomach before blood is spilled. Instead, the signal can carry broader information: urgency, pleasantness, arousal, demand. And context does much of the translation. You hear the meow, but you also see the empty bowl. You see the closed door. You notice the cat standing beside the cabinet. Your brain combines everything. And suddenly the message feels obvious. That is one reason cat owners can feel as if they understand full sentences. You may not be translating a feline dictionary, you may be reading a relationship, and your cat is reading one too. Think about what happens after a meow. Sometimes you feed the cat, sometimes you open something, sometimes you follow it, sometimes you speak back, sometimes you pick it up. The sound produces consequences, and consequences shape behavior. A cat that discovers one vocal pattern gets your attention, has a reason to repeat it. A cat that discovers another sound gets ignored, may use it less. Over thousands of ordinary interactions, the household becomes a tiny communication laboratory. Not because your cat is secretly studying linguistics, because learning what works is useful. This is where the story gets uncomfortable. The communication may work partly because feline sounds can reach ancient caregiving machinery inside us. Karen McComb and colleagues tested a related vocal trick. In 2009, they studied what they called solicitation purring. Some cats produced purrs containing an unusually high-frequency component when seeking food. Human listeners judged those purrs as more urgent and less pleasant, and the acoustic feature overlapped with frequencies important in infant cries. That does not mean cats consciously imitate babies. There is no tiny villain inside your cat adjusting frequencies while planning breakfast. But selection and learning do not require a conspiracy. If a sound reliably makes a human respond, that sound can become useful. And suddenly the annoying noise outside your bedroom at dawn looks different. Your cat is not merely making sound. It is pressing a button. The button is you. But here is where skepticism deserves room. Maybe we are exaggerating everything. Humans are spectacular at projecting minds onto animals. We see guilt in dogs, attitude in cats, smiles in faces that may not actually be smiling. So perhaps cat owners simply imagine complex meaning because they already know what is happening. Maybe the meow itself carries very little. Maybe the food bowl, doorway, clock, posture, and routine are doing nearly all the work. And there is evidence for caution. Elisabetta Prado-Privid and colleagues tested human interpretation of cat meows. In 2020, listeners heard vocalizations recorded during food waiting, isolation, and brushing. People were not especially good at identifying the exact context. Experience with cats helped somewhat. But there was no magical universal translation system. That skeptical point matters. A meow is not English with fur. Yet that does not make it meaningless. It means the communication is messier, more flexible, more dependent on history between two individuals. And that may actually be more interesting. Because your cat does not need humanity to understand every meow. It needs you, your routine matters, your reactions matter. The sounds that succeed in your home can become part of a private system. One cat develops a tiny squeak. Another screams like civilization has collapsed because breakfast is 4 minutes late. Another barely vocalizes at all. Breed, age, personality, environment, social experience, and reinforcement can all influence how much a cat talks. And the same cat can sound different under different pressures. A short, bright meow may accompany greeting. Repeated calls can escalate a demand. Longer, harsher vocalizations may appear with frustration, fear, conflict, mating, pain, or distress. Which is why one dangerous mistake is assuming every meow is social theater. A sudden increase in vocalization can matter, especially in an older cat. Pain, sensory decline, cognitive changes, illness, hunger, or disorientation can alter vocal behavior. The animal that normally whispers but suddenly begins crying through the night may not be becoming dramatic. Something may have changed. Context is everything. And that returns us to the deeper question. Why meow at humans at all? Because humans changed the cat's environment. We created concentrated resources, warm shelter, reliable food, protection from some threats, and physical barriers everywhere. Doors are a perfect example. A wild hunter can simply move through its territory. A house cat encounters a mysterious vertical object controlled by a primate with thumbs. The cat cannot explain the problem, but it can stand beside the door and make noise until the primate finally understands basic customer service. That is funny, but biologically it is powerful. Domestication does not only change bodies, it can change behavior. It changes which signals succeed, which temperaments tolerate proximity, which animals gain access to resources, and which communication strategies survive inside human environments. Cats also did something unusual. They remained cats. They did not become miniature humans. They retained predatory instincts, territorial behavior, scent communication, and an enormous amount of independence. Yet they also became capable of forming social relationships with another species. Us. That relationship required bridges. Touch became one. Visual signals became another. Vocalization became another. The meow sits inside that bridge, not as proof that your cat thinks like you, but as evidence that two very different mammals can build a working system without sharing the same natural language. And you participate more than you realize. You teach your cat which sounds move you. Your cat teaches you which sounds matter. You learn the difference between the casual kitchen meow and the disturbing sound that makes you stand up immediately. You learn when silence itself is unusual. The communication becomes less like translation, more like calibration. Two nervous systems. Watching. Testing. Remembering. Adjusting. That may be the real reason cats meow so much around us. Not because every meow has one fixed definition, not because cats evolved a secret human language, and not because they think we are simply giant cats. The better answer is stranger. A kitten-like vocal tool entered a relationship where humans were unusually responsive to sound. Domestication, learning, and daily reinforcement gave that tool new power. Then, every household began shaping it again. So next time your cat walks into the room, stares directly at you, and meows, notice what happens next. You will probably look. You may answer. You may even obey. And somewhere inside that tiny exchange is something ancient and astonishing. A predator learned how to call across the species barrier, and you learned to listen.